Hey, turns out the sun's a deadly laser these days. Who'd have thought? And to prevent myself from bursting into flames due to my melanin deficiency, I'm beating the heat by binging anime. Tariffs be damned. 371 viruses found due to internet piracy? Oh boy. Why is my CPU ramping up? Anyway, new anime means I had to pick shows, so I used my usual method. Sneaking onto an aircraft carrier to slap show names on missiles aimed at... You know what? No. The news moves so goddamn fast these days that I can't even make topical jokes about how I use awful current events as a way to pick my anime roster without dating my scripts terribly. I'm going on 36. I just want to sit and watch some goddamn anime to relax. So that's exactly what I did with the help of my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Also, if you like these first episode breakdowns, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on seasonal content from me. Come October, I'll have a full review of all the shows in this video. So let's take a quick look at the lineup before going deeper, huh? Private Tutor to the Duke's Daughter shows us the importance of boundaries with students. Rent-A-Girlfriend's 4th season, more like no longer living rent-free in my head since the second. Hard pass. The 2nd season of Reborn as a vending machine offers a second chance at grabbing my interest. Welcome to the Outcast restaurant serves up the usual fantasy harem menu. Dandadan's 2nd season drops, which is already enough to set expectations at their peak. The water magician barely makes a splash with the standard isekai setup. The background character accidentally gets put in the romance spotlight, with April showers bring May flowers. Vampires are finally back in style, with Call of the Night returning for its 2nd season. Secrets of the Silent Witch shows us the lengths introverts will go to avoid public speaking. I think Cinderella's gonna sue somebody with Betrothed to my sister's ex. Nine Rulers Crown makes summer memories, with superpowers and serial killers. The Shy Hero and Assassin Princesses stretches the definition of yandere to the extreme. I guess we're just relearning not to judge a book by its cover for the 100th time in Bad Girl. The highly anticipated return of My Dress-Up Darling is back to give audiences blue balls once more. Cloverworks brings another borderline delinquent flirting with the rich girl in the fragrant flower blooms with dignity. This summer Hikaru Died takes Capgirl syndrome to the next level. I've still not managed to flush the hype from Toilet Bound Hanako-kun's 2nd season continuing. We're exploring the fascinating world of mineralogy with Rudy Rocks. Okay, I promise it's more interesting than it sounds. Alright, I guess I'm justified in calling this my ugly season, with Ugly Mug Epic Fighter, where an ugly dude reincarnates to a god tier fighter. Obviously. Gachi Akuta just sounds on brand for my channel, with fighting trash to see the light of the sun once more. Alright, melanin deficiency. Never mind. Language barriers be damned. Anime romance just can't be stopped in the cultural exchange with the Game Center girl. Hotel Inhuman sounds more like a set piece from a John Wick movie than an anime. City, the animation, is the spiritual successor Nichijou fans have been praying for since 2011. See You Tomorrow at the Food Court has the average high school experience of unlikely friends hanging out to nerd out. It's been entirely too long since I've had a good girls love anime, and there's no freaking way I'll be your lover, unless... is filling that hole in my heart. Are you ready for more uncomfortable fan service with Reincarnated as the 7th Prince 2nd season? I'm not. You're about 15 years too late for this trigger, but we're happy for the new panty and stocking with garter belt. I simply refuse to believe there isn't romance in solo camping for 2. The 2nd core of Sakamoto Days is back to hopefully give us some goddamn answers. And lastly, I'm wrapping up this season with yet another season 2. And hopefully Kaiju number 8 can finally win me over. Well, I've not just got a hell of a roster, I've also got the most shows I've watched in a single season to date. So let's get into the breakdowns. First up, we're looking at Private Tutor to the Duke's Daughter. Some magician, after failing his test to move up in his profession, lands a job as a tutor for some quick cash, teaching a prestigious Duke's daughter how to use magic. Problem is, she ostensibly has no talent, so can he fix whatever's ailing her just in time for her to attend the Royal Academy? That sounds like parts from about 3 other anime smashed together, which isn't a good sign. But before I get ahead of myself and just write this off as generic, let's talk about what we actually get, huh? This is a pure fantasy series. No OP protag or isekai to ruin this one. Happy about that. While also using a more modern aesthetic with trains, electricity, and cars. That at least gives it something to set it apart. While the plot is a bit cliched, the setup is at least nicely done. Introducing the setting organically, giving us bits of world building to chew on, and also letting us get to know the characters through solid interactions that showcase their personalities and challenges. But I think what impressed me the most is this does a great job not overreaching. It knows the story it wants to tell and does it well within the first episode to get you invested in the rest to come. The main character is clearly clever and demonstrates it without coming across as wanking his own intellect. And while I'm not the biggest fan of these blushing, moe blob female characters in this first outing, I will admit, there's at least room for their personalities to grow on me. The art and animation isn't amazing, honestly it has a fairly bland look overall, but the editing and direction are at least on point, turning an otherwise average viewing experience into a pretty engaging watch. It flows well, and sometimes, that's just as important as pretty art or impressive animation. This does have potential, and I'm looking forward to where it's going. I wasn't too fond of the first season of Reborn as a vending machine, despite its novel premise, because it wasted much of its potential on not exploring the ideas it came up with in any real depth. Like, there's a lot of interesting topics it touches on, but never really makes a bigger impact than just a passing mention. So whether this season will rectify that mistake, or continues to be a middling meandering mess will be my main focus this go around. That said, this picks up roughly where the first season left off, with just a bit of recap to help fill in the gaps for those who might be a bit fuzzy on the details after 2 years. It incorporates it well to not break the flow of the story either, though it is still blatantly a recap. But the fact this is kicking off with some lore about the world outside the dungeon, and an actual direction by getting revenge on the Demon Lord's general that ended last season, already puts this one on the right track. Despite having the same studio and only a 2-year gap between releases, there is a subtle shift in animation and art. Yeah, we're dealing with a different staff, which usually doesn't bode well if you enjoyed the first season. Yeah, definitely setting my expectations low as the director this time around doesn't have a great track record. I mean, animation wasn't really a selling point in the first outing, so it probably won't impact the outcome a ton. Look, pretty much just having a direction to go is a good change of pace for this series, so I'm hoping it continues that trajectory. Now seating for Welcome to the Outcast restaurant. A guy gets betrayed by his friends in the strongest guild around. Wait, are we sure this isn't an OP, kicked out of the hero party sort of series? Oh, never mind. He opens a restaurant to flex his capped cooking skills, and accumulates all the OP waifu sidekicks whose resumes other anime rejected. I'm having a hard time getting on this show's wavelength. The characters all have MMO-style names like fucking spaghetti or some shit, but the tone is otherwise pretty serious. The setting is a straightforward fantasy series with levels and skills for no fucking reason, on top of the inciting incident just being the dude kicked out of a high-level party like so many other anime. But ignore all that, because it's entirely unrelated to the actual story of him cooking delicious food and dealing with goofballs. It's a tad surreal and slow-paced, but I'm not hating this series. It just feels like it included a lot of extra baggage to get to the starting point that it probably didn't need. That said, Dennis is a fine lead and grounded core for the rest of the people to bounce off of. And while food fantasy anime is becoming worryingly common, I'm always down for a show that spotlights cooking. That part of this is genuinely decent, while actually incorporating the magic system into it. Big props. Animation here is better than you would expect, but it's by OLM, the same studio who brings weirdly solid animation to good and bad projects alike. Yeah, I still can't get over how much they carried the mediocrity that is I parry everything by just making it look presentable. And what little action there is actually goes pretty hard for an otherwise tame show on that front. It's competently put together in other places too, making for a solid first impression. I don't think Dandadan's second season needs much of an introduction, but who am I to deny the people who somehow missed out on the hype of the first season? This is a supernatural shonen show that mixes pop culture occult themes of aliens and ghost urban legends with battle elements to create a visual spectacle. Our main boy Okarun gets cursed by a speedster granny ghost and loses his nuts, while his newfound friend awakens psychic powers to fight back against aliens trying to SA her. Yeah, this has some heavy themes and doesn't always treat them with care, but never portrays them in a positive light either. The creatures doing this stuff are evil, so it's not glorifying it. If that sort of stuff bothers you, I would advise sitting this out, because those dark themes are pervasive enough that it will intrude on your enjoyment. But if not, it's both funny and emotionally impactful when it's not using those dark moments to build tension. As for how this continues the story, it picks up right where the last core or season left off. That line just keeps getting blurrier as time goes on, and it dives right back into the unfolding mystery at hand. I was pretty annoyed how this left off when it ended in fall on a huge cliffhanger, but great news, it gives this outing immediate gratification. Hell yeah, I love coming back to that type of shit. As for the art and animation, this is still handled by Sareru. They're a fantastic visually focused studio that I've been praising since their first anime, and I've yet to be disappointed on that front. You have to admit, even Yorideko is visually interesting, so while the bar is already high, they're easily clearing it, which is honestly both expected and impressive, given how high the first season set it. Look, it's more Dandadan, go watch it, unless you're triggered by the previously mentioned content warnings. Isekai continues to keep digging, despite the well drying up long ago. Well, let's see if the water magician can wring out a few more drops for us, huh? A guy gets reincarnated into a fantasy world with eternal youth and a knack for water magic, where he spends 2 decades fighting for his life against monsters and accidentally power leveling his specialty to the limit. And once discovered by civilization, becomes the premier water magician in the world. And here's the thing, I just told you the plot, and it sounds like any other isekai on the market. The issue is, it's actually a pretty well done version of that story. Not like Mushoku Tensei levels of well done, but competently put together and actually interested in exploring its setting and world, unlike most other isekai that use a paint-by-numbers approach. My biggest complaint would be that it flies a bit fast and loose with its story progression, glossing over a lot of the foundation that would otherwise get the audience to like the character. And considering the dude's a bit of a generic anybody, he's probably the weakest aspect of this show. There's 2 studios working on this, Typhoon Graphics and Wonderland. The former's made 2 recent anime that I've covered that were abysmal in the animation department, but interesting in their direction and storytelling, while the latter here is just a newcomer. The end result is honestly a nicer looking first episode, so there's that. Basically just throwing some decent art and animation into the mix. Though I will point this out, the fight scenes are a tad clumsy with choreography and pacing. My main concern is, can it maintain this quality going forward? And here's hoping. My thoughts on this first episode, that is, for an isekai, it's passing with flying colors, but that's also not really saying much. High school romance has been in a bit of a slump for the past few seasons, so let's see if April showers bring May flowers can fix it. One day, the ugly girl in class no one really talks to gets caught daydreaming about romance manga by the hot guy. Now he won't stop trying to slide into her DMs for some reason. Sounds too good to be true, so she's not falling for that epic prank, bro. But I don't know, dude's kinda nice, so maybe it's actually real. I will say, I am gonna give this one some points for breaking the stereotypical mold of a shy cute girl with a delinquent or model type. Her not being conventionally attractive makes her relatable, while also creating some actual obstacles to overcome. No, I don't mean ugly people can't find happiness or whatever, but it does put her self-esteem in the toilet. So clearly she's not gonna assume the school superstar is interested in her platonically, let alone romantically. Overall, it's a pretty grounded series, even if the humor is mostly derived from the over-the-top reactions of our main girl and the awkward situation she finds herself in. In terms of art and animation, this one's fine. Silver Link is working on this one, and they're a bit of a mixed bag for a studio. Like they're veterans coasting on past success at this point, but lacking a real identity as a studio, while also having huge swings in quality too. Some shows they work on look nice, while others are best described as PowerPoints. As for here, the art's okay and moves well, but it lacks any personality or style to really set it apart. Also, minor pet peeve on my part, the quote-unquote ugly girl doesn't really look ugly most of the time. I mean, she's kinda frumpy, but that's it. Either way, the first episode here was fine, and it might even turn into a sleeper hit, depending on just how well it sticks the landing. You know, it's honestly pretty hard to talk about new crap when summer's so packed full of heavy-hitting season 2s. And Call of the Night is back after a 3-year break. Cool. I ranked the first season pretty highly all the way back in 2022 for a fun story that was part slice of life, part thriller, and just a whole lot of eye candy because, let's face it, it looked beautiful. But since it's been a minute, our main dude has insomnia and hates his high-stress life, and decides to skip out and play hooky all night with a vampire in hopes he can fall in love, and then become one himself. From there, the plot escalates, as his classmates find out what he's been doing, get roped in, and he learns more about what vampires are really like and the girl he's interested in, bringing about an existential dilemma for the poor teenage boy. And season 2 picks up, diving headfirst into the romance it was always building towards, but played like it wasn't. This first episode was on the slower side, but that's not always a bad thing. It gives us time to settle back in and get reacquainted with the cast. It's still pretty hard to pin down exactly what genre this series is, as it's dabbled in just about all of them, but done so well that it's always an enjoyable watch. In terms of art and animation, it's still top notch. Same studio, so I wasn't expecting a drastic shift here. Beautiful color and style meshed with impressive camera movements and expressive characters make for an engaging show. It's taken me entirely too long to notice, but this series does share a lot in common with Bakemonogatari in terms of humor and presentation, which is a compliment. I'm glad this is finally back, if you can't tell, so check it out. Introverts are eating good this summer with Secrets of the Silent Witch. So a legendary witch who mastered magic without using incantations because she's literally too shy to speak in public gets tasked with secretly guarding a prince. The question is, what's gonna break first? The forces of evil trying to kill the dude, or her will from too much social interaction? The plot does sound to be on the goofier side, but that's just the main girl mostly. Don't let that deceive you. This is a fairly straightforward fantasy series, following the medieval European tropes already established by the genre, but at least engages with them, rather than using it as a shorthand to skip world building. The setup and setting are pretty decent, as it establishes how major the wordless magic feat is, the threat posed by dragons, and why our main witch is so impressive efficiently within a few minutes. It gives us the background and eases us into the story well. As for the titular Silent Witch, her introvertedness is played mostly like actual social anxiety. That makes her a source of comedy and moe at the same time. So overall, a likable combination for a leading role cursed with being the scapegoat, and a pretty solid foundation for the plot to unfold. Is that plot good though? Well, it builds intrigue beyond the first episode, so I'm at least invested in the story. Art and animation are good, but the direction is definitely on point for a solid viewing experience that flows well. Yeah, hard to believe this is the same studio working on Reborn as a vending machine. I will give it credit for cute character designs that mesh with the world. That can be a surprisingly high bar to clear for a lot of anime. It certainly has potential. I never would have thought an untimely death could be the solution to our rom-com problems, but Betrothed to My Sister's Ex proves me wrong. So a noble daughter is treated as a servant in her poor house, only to have her life turned upside down when her surprisingly decent older sister bites the dust on her way to marry some richer noble. Well, too late. The dowry's already been squandered by their asshole father, so they ship off the main girl as the replacement for the broken model. Obviously, this follows a pretty standard setup of an abused daughter finding happiness we so often see in fairy tales, but it does a better job establishing why our leading lady has feelings for her love interest to get you invested. He finds her at a low moment and treats her like a human being for the first time in her life, and that's even before her sudden engagement to the guy. Plus, you know, it's not just a one-sided thing either, as the dude has faced some discrimination for his mother's heritage in the past, and she's not a bigot. Also, good subversion there with the older sister being nice and quirky. So cool. It at least shows some degree of interaction and trauma bonding before launching us down the romance route. For the story, it's different enough that I'm curious how it's going to tweak the formula, but I'm also not expecting anything revolutionary here. As for the art and animation, it's on the lower end of the quality spectrum. It's not distractingly bad, but there's a definite budget feel to this series between the line work and limited animation, mostly in what they choose not to show by cutting to reactions and close-ups. That said, the intro here isn't bad and the characters have me invested, so we'll see where it goes. Nine Rulers Crown is sure to be a struggle, not because it's automatically bad, but good luck finding the damn thing. It didn't get licensed. So in a sleepy college town, a sacred relic suddenly breaks, awakening superpowers in some young people. Now they're on the hunt for a serial killer packing some supernatural heat. It sounds like a quirky sort of show based on a visual novel in line with something like Key or Chaos Ed, but it's not nearly as well put together. Well, from a storytelling standpoint at least. Yeah, the characters lack impact despite their design screaming "pay attention to me," which just evolves into visual noise when it looks like every major female character entered a Who's the Main Girl competition and came in third. The plot has little reason to actually kick off, which makes the first episode drag painfully slow. And while I get that that's trying to establish a norm before subverting it with the superpower shit, it could have done that much better. Like, the actual intrigue doesn't even come in until near the end of the first episode, and by that point, I'd pretty much lost interest. Yeah, you don't really see superpowers until then. The production on this feels about 20 years old, with overly designed, obvious main character hairstyles and outfits that make no sense. And I'm not even talking about the cosplay character here. Yeah, and surprisingly, the art's not detailed enough to carry that aesthetic. Who'd have thought? Combined with fairly bland animation overall, that makes this anime pretty boring to watch. Only making that worse is the bad editing on top of it. Like, it's not offensively bad, and on paper, the shot choices make sense as establishing visual storytelling, but in practice, they break the flow of scenes and come across as accidental or too on the nose. The first episode isn't good, and the licensing issue isn't what's killing this one. If looks could kill, I'm sure the shy hero and assassin princesses would have an easier time, huh? So a shy guy is super strong and destined to be a hero, but due to his anxiety hasn't actually managed to set out on his world-saving quest. Lucky him, 3 hot girls invite him to party up finally, only for each one to want him dead for their own reasons. As for what it's actually like, it's a fairly goofy action series that balances the genres well, marrying the action and comedy elements expertly and utilizing the fantasy to amp up both aspects. Packed with gags about assassination attempts gone wrong, the hero saving the day, and weirdly, winning over his attempted murderers temporarily. The characters are a highlight. Between a haughty demon princess, foul-mouthed assassin, bimbo dominatrix, and daydreaming mush-mouthed hero, there's variety in the setups. And the hero's awful communication skills and daydreaming make him a solid, unwitting foil to their antics. I like how they've set up the 3 would-be killers in an adversarial relationship, so they don't just team up and kill the guy and succeed on their respective missions for tension. But mostly, the show's just funny in how it escalates everything. The animation here is deceptively simple. It looks like a fairly low-budget anime until you see it in motion. The amount of detail gives it a polished look, with a great understanding of comedic timing to punch up the gags to the next level. And when the action scenes finally kick in, it's really impressive. Much better than I expected from this series, which is a pleasant surprise. Yeah, I didn't expect a show about 3 psychopaths trying to kill a hero to be a top contender this summer, but it certainly got my attention. I'm absolutely shocked that Bad Girl is missing a shoujo eye tag, but that rarely stops anime from doing it anyway. Our main girl has a worrying interest in the head of her disciplinary committee at school, and to get her attention, she decides to dress the part of a delinquent despite being a model student. This is an entry into the cute girls doing cute things genre, and while that's a tad debatable, the doing cute things part specifically, it certainly isn't subtle in what it's going for. Fanservice-y Yuri baiting and cute designs strung together by mild humor. Despite that probably harsh assessment, I don't dislike this show. Its lack of substance just means its gimmick and fluff have to carry it hard. So does the goody girl playing a delinquent actually keep my interest? Barely. Her being bad at it does get a few laughs, and characters have a nice back and forth that is actually cute. Which is, let's face it, what anyone's watching this anime for. It's based on a 4 coma, so the story was never going to be the focus. The art has charm with simplistic character designs, bright colors, and exaggerated expressions to really nail that cute vibe. But if you're looking for good animation, don't bother. This is a pretty standard slice of life show that put more effort into designs than visual storytelling or ramping up the jokes through animation. It's not necessary, but it does make this feel like a bit more of a budget series that could have done better. Maybe I'm just not that into this since Food for the Soul just finished, but I'll give it a few more episodes before settling on my feelings for it. Summer is full of highly anticipated season 2s, and My Dress Up Darling was probably the top of most people's lists. This was a clear breakout when it first aired for being a good, positive take on cosplay and hobbies, a cute character dynamic, and great presentation. But it's been over 3 years since it aired, so let's recap the plot real quick, huh? Our main dude likes Hina dolls a ton and works for his grandfather making them. Except he hit a bit of a rut, met a cute popular girl in his high school who's super into anime and cosplay, and ropes him into helping make outfits, while giving him a massive confidence boost and experience he can apply to his craft. And as the two get to know one another and deepen their friendship, some clear romantic tensions form. So how does this season pick up? Much where the last left off. More cosplay, teasing, and raunchy humor that embarrasses both of them to the point you're basically screaming at the screen for them to just kiss already. Considering these two are clearly in love, it's just a matter of time until the confession hits. Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to this season if you dig unfocused rom-coms where the relationship itself is the yardstick. As for the animation and art, it's still Cloverworks and they're still a great studio, so the visuals are as good as they've ever been, which is what really elevates this anime for me. The touches they add are what make a lot of these key character moments come to life. So obviously this is a series to keep an eye on, especially for fans. Let's See if the Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity manages to bud this summer with Cloverworks' second romance anime this season. So a guy with resting bitch face bumps into a girl at his family cafe who runs away. Okay, that's normal. He's used to that. But the next day he sees her there and she apologizes. Turns out she attends the rich private school next to his rundown public one, and an unlikely friendship forms. We've been drowning in so much rom-com lately that I've almost forgotten what a straightforward drama one's like. Luckily, this one's incredibly well done. It uses a lot of the tired tropes we've seen in the genre between the sheltered rich girl and delinquent with a heart of gold leads, but what we get actually plays up tension while building that relationship. The main dude gets a bad rap, but he's genuinely a good person. helping out others throughout the episode. And our main girl is that cute sort of must-protect anime fans love, but not exactly the perfect upper-class lady society expects. It creates a nice dynamic that brings them together organically while subverting expectations. She was interested in him before they officially met, and he's got pretty low self-esteem due to how people treat him, so we've got a good setup and chemistry. Animation here is amazing, as expected. Cloverworks is a studio that combines the best of both worlds for people who like the medium, detailed art and animation with strong cinematography to really create beautiful looking anime. This is a solid start, and a contender for top romance of the season already. Let's see if it can maintain that momentum. Wow, already halfway through the video, huh? Longtime viewers know what this means. It's my not so subtle ad break. Let me know down below if your ad blocker is still working or not. Comments help the algorithm and all that. And hey, while you're here, why not hit the subscribe button if you haven't already? That way you can stay up to date on seasonal content from me. Wow, if I do subscription plugs anymore, people might start to mistake me for an actual YouTuber. Anyway, back to more first impressions. I doubt I'm the only one with high hopes for the summer Hikaru died after Cygame's recent success with Apocalypse Hotel, so let's see how it ended up. Two friends have been together since they were kids, and they're best buds. But one summer, our main dude's bestie changes personalities after he disappeared for a week in the mountains. When he brings that up 6 months later, the thing transforms and threatens to kill him while professing its love for the guy. So can he accept this unexpected twist? I guess, because he didn't run away as fast as he could. This starts off really strong, building a tense atmosphere and mystery before dropping the actual horror on us to kick off the plot. Yeah, Hikaru being dead and replaced by some eldritch entity? That's not the whole thing. It's just the start. But even beyond that, how this conveys the pain of loss as well as coping mechanisms is honestly impressive. There's a weight given to how the lead feels about all this shit happening, and it makes the story come alive. Whether it's healthy or not is yet to be seen, but I also think that's part of the hook for this anime. You know, I came in expecting Cygames to blow it, and I'm happily proven wrong. The production here is incredibly nice with solid use of CG to enhance the atmosphere, really nice looking traditional animation, and incredible visual storytelling that really elevates it. It's hauntingly atmospheric and sets the mood wonderfully in every scene. I've been starved for a good horror and psychological series, and I'm often disappointed when they do come by. But this one left an actual good first impression, so here's hoping it can keep it up. Keeping track of whether something's a second core or season is getting hard enough, and then toilet-bound Hanako-kun goes and throws in a second core to a second season just to fuck with me. Thanks for that. Not that I'm complaining, because I love this series for its complex story dripping with style. The first part of this season left off with things escalating around Yashiro, what with that whole her becoming aware of her impending demise, and a pretty big shift in her relationship with Hanako. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions here. Yeah, we're still dealing with the same studio and staff, so production has maintained the same level of quality I loved in the previous two entries. We have awesome style, great animation, and an understanding of action, horror, and comedy that mesh seamlessly while telling a compelling story about life, death, and the occult. Hanako-kun is a series I think more people should be watching due to the fact that it's a well-made anime that touches on a lot of themes, while also doing it in a pretty unique way. And after 24 episodes so far, my opinion hasn't really changed. Maybe we'll find a gem in the rough with the other cute girls doing cute things anime this summer. Rudy rocks. Our titular character, Rudy, has a worrying fascination with jewelry and minerals. Oh, that's it. That's the plot. I don't know what I was expecting. This is another show that's a thinly veiled deep dive into whatever niche interest the author had when writing this manga. So while it's mostly about cute anime girls finding a new hobby, there is a bit of trivia thrown in as well, to bore your non-existent friends at parties. Okay, enough being a snarky bitch. The idea of digging for rocks sounds pretty dull, but this actually makes for a pretty nice watch. The cast are all packed full of energy juxtaposed to the subject matter. Our main girl is a vapid little gremlin, and the comedy here does get a few laughs, mostly at her expense. There's not really a ton of plot besides how Rudy gets into her new hobby by meeting a grad student studying rocks where she was looking for crystals, but it also doesn't really need much. This is a good start for a slice of life anime. Oh, Studio Bind is taking a break from edging isekai fans with Mushoku Tensei to helm this project. Seems outside their wheelhouse, but considering they did Onimai and Flower of Asura, they've proven more flexible than expected. The art is nice, the characters are extremely expressive and full of energy, which carries into the actual animation here. There's interesting shot choices that make this one feel like a high-end production, especially with how they turn their gaze towards nature. Everything looks nice. For something that could have easily gotten away with a minimalist approach, I'm impressed just how much work went into it, so it's got my recommendation so far. Ugly bastards aren't just OP in the arrow scene, because they're breaking into isekai with Ugly Mug Epic Fighter. A guy gets wrongly convicted of a crime and gives up on life. But it's not bath time buddy Toaster-kun to the rescue. Instead, his computer's the one that gives him a literal way out. By sacrificing what little looks he has to gain an absolute shit ton of skill points, he transforms into an OP protag the world can't bear to witness. As for what this really is, it's a lighter isekai that relies on its gimmick to carry it instead of having an actual interesting story, which really makes it wear its welcome incredibly fast. Not helped by how heavy-handed it plays the first few minutes to get us to sympathize with the ugly lead, but that doesn't mean it still can't be entertaining, right? From there, it plays a little fast and loose, essentially just plopping this dude down into the new world where he immediately meets 3 other people who are transported like him. That's where they form a party for the usual isekai bullshit. Except, dude has a ton of drawbacks he's self-inflicted to give him god-tier stats. And that's where the comedy comes in. Though, it's more based on him overperforming than the actual negatives he chose. Kinda wasted potential. The art for this series is kind of all over the place, but not in a bad way. Like, it looks fine, but not that it belongs together. The animation and direction are fine, even flexing a bit with the action scenes to amp up the comedy, but it still feels more average than good most of the time. With this premise, I was expecting something more impactful, but instead, got a fairly average isekai with a gimmick it can't drop. The idea with dumpster diving is that you're looking for gold, and I'm hoping that Kateikyoushi will be my prize this summer. So a kid lives in the slums of some city with his stepfather, but after finding him dead one day and being the only one at the scene of the crime, he's arrested and sentenced to execution. Talk about a short series. Or not. Apparently executions here are being thrown into the town's bottomless garbage hole, where our boy doesn't die and is instead saved from monsters by a cleaner, who fights literal trash. Now our boy does that too, so he can climb his way back up and find the real killer. That's a really strong intro to the plot, by giving us the dude's history, current condition, and goals pretty quick. And the opening scene for this, while not directly telling us that information, gives a lot of world building about the setting and why our character is the way he is. Though I'm still floored they have armed guards protecting literal trash. If I'm allowed a minor gripe, it is a bit telly by explaining the backdrop to this story, but I can forgive it because it's a personality-packed series that's engaging to watch. There's a lot of shonen vibes comparable to other major anime, so while it does give the impression that it's firmly in the genre, I don't see immediate similarities to others, so it's pretty unique. Bones is behind the production here, and surprise, they're still an amazing studio. Great art, action, fluid animation, and stellar cinematography. No complaints on my end for how this anime looks and feels. This one got me hooked pretty much instantly, so I'm excited to see how it's gonna turn out. I've got some spare time, so let's hit up the arcade with cultural exchange with the Game Center girl. So a guy working at an arcade pulled a triple S rare on the gacha slots when he bumps into a foreign girl struggling on a crane game. Being the smooth operator he is, he wins the toy she was after, hands it over, and then brushes it all off as a Valentine's gift to get out of that awkward situation. Unfortunately for him, the English-speaking world, and this girl in particular, take Valentine's Day more seriously than the Japanese. So now the dude's about to experience British colonialism firsthand. Jokes aside, this is an incredibly cute series that's got a pretty simple premise. But that simple premise belies a pretty substantial barrier to communication and a pretty big source of comedy. That being the cultural and language barrier between the two leads. I will say, most anime that tries to incorporate English does a pretty bad job, but this is decently fluent, so big props to the Japanese cast on that one. Big yikes alert though, the girl in this anime is 13 and the dude's 18. While I am seeing the romance tag on this one, it feels more like she has a crush on him and he's not taking her feelings too seriously because she's just a kid. Whether that changes after the first episode, I don't know. Have to find out on that one. This has the same studio as Jashin-chan Dropkick and Pseudo Harem. Might have even seen the cameo in this. Both of which lean pretty hard into the more simplistic animation aesthetic, but convey a lot with so little. Even something as simple as the opening of this anime being in dull colors aside from our lead, only to get brighter as she opens up, is a nice touch. There's a solid colorful style here that fits the theme of the show. While not technically impressive, it is still nice. I like the first episode enough, so I'll stick it out. I've heard people are dying to get into Hotel Inhumans, so let's take a look before my dad jokes do us in. Two concierge handle various requests from assassins at their hotel, from the usual amenities all the way up to body disposal. And while that sounds like it might be a slice of life comedy, it's actually a slice of life action and drama series. The story is a bit cliched, pulling clear inspiration from a ton of different action series, but also not really making those concepts its own. On top of that, I found the drama to be pretty ham-fisted. You know what a tense car chase scene with guns needs? voiceovers and flashbacks to childhood to fill in a character's history, of course. That really keeps the pace tense. But the thing is, it's not even for the main character. That's just to introduce us to the pitch for the hotel. The whole thing feels disjointed and it pulls me out of the experience. But even after the intro, the main focus of the series isn't the best, as the two real main characters are handling requests for guests to tell smaller contained stories that aren't about them. Sure, they will probably feature and we will get more about them, but I can already tell the formula here. Don't get me wrong, that can work when there's an overarching theme or plot connecting those, but this is more like self-contained vignettes than an actual story. For the art and animation, it's not great. The art style lacks depth and feels stilted for the action it's trying to go for. This is by the same studio doing Bad Girl this season, and it's kinda sad the silly 4-Koma anime is better looking, not because it's better produced mind you, it's entirely due to the fact that it's fitting the style it's going for. This just lacks punch to pull off the action scenes, both from an artistic, animation, and even directorial perspective. This had potential, but it just feels like it wasted it. It's been over 10 years since Nichijou broke my sense of humor, and the creator is back with a fresh new anime adaptation of City the Animation to do it all over again. So we follow various characters in their everyday lives and batshit insane adventures in the city, from working a part-time job, going home after school, losing a point card, and other random occurrences that get out of hand. Yeah, same creator and studio behind Nichijou, so that alone should be enough to tell you we've got another insane gag anime on our hands. And that said, when something is pure comedy, it's a lot harder to critique, because let's face it, the story here is non-existent. The characters and such only exist as vehicles to tell jokes, so whether this succeeds or not rests entirely on whether you like this style of humor. That being mundane conversations and topics taken to absurd extremes both visually and narratively. It has a weird sort of in-universe consistency where crazy shit is fairly normal. But if I had to say, the characters here do feel more believable in their relationships. I buy that these people are friends and it makes the jokes land just a bit more, if you know what I mean. And on that front, I laughed out loud multiple times during this episode. While this is still KyoAni, there is a distinct difference in this production from Nichijou. Both do share a similar look, but where Nichijou felt like it was emulating a manga on paper, there's a specific picture book vibe here that works really nicely. Yet, it still does capture the source material style, and that's on top of just the smooth flow and energetic animation that makes this series come alive. This series does share a lot of DNA with its predecessor, but in some aspects, I think it's actually improved on the formula, and I'm loving it so far. See you tomorrow at the food court. Jokes on this anime, I don't even have friends to make plans with. So two girls who seem like a rich aloof type and a lone wolf respectively share parts of their personalities at the food court no one else knows. Like a mobile game addiction and YouTuber obsession. Why not? This is a slice of life comedy anime that's pretty light overall. More a feel-good show about two unlikely friends than anything else. Our main source of humor here is the seemingly pointless banter about random topics, typically around the internet and pop culture, but it's less punchline and more relatability, with the subject and observational jokes on them, often at the character's expense. As for those characters, well, our stuck-up princess is kind of a pushover who trolls online as an outlet, and the lone wolf type is more lazy than apathetic. This anime is slow and rambling, but it's not bad when that's sort of the point, being just the bits of the day when these two hang out. And I hope you weren't expecting much, because there's not much beyond that, even in terms of imagery. The animation here is hard to pin down, it's not great or even imaginative, but it's also not demanding a lot, and what we get looks fine. I'm just left with the impression that this anime could have been much more enjoyable, had it put in the effort to presenting these conversations visually like how VTuber Legend did in 2024, beyond just two people talking and looking at their phones most of the time. Overall, kind of a disappointment, but I won't deny, it does have a laid-back charm I can at least see myself enjoying, given the right mood. Finally getting my hands on some Yuri this season with There's No Frickin' Way I'll Be Your Lover. So, freshman in high school tries to turn over a new leaf from her gloomy middle school days, and happens to make friends with a literal fashion model. But just when she thinks it's going great, this girl confesses her love, which probably just ruined their friendship, right? Thus begins a hilarious back and forth, where each respective side tries to convince the other to either keep their relationship the same, or upgrade their Facebook status to It's Complicated. Does that joke even land in 2025? Probably not, but I'm keeping it in. This is definitely more comedy than romance, as it's about our lead girl trying to avoid that at all costs, because she finally has friends. Behind the scenes, she's an anxiety-riddled mess constantly trying to keep up her normie appearances, making for a chaotic energy that gives this anime life. The other lead is almost too earnest for her own good, leading to some good reactions and banter, varying things up, while giving us a different dynamic than we typically see in girls' love. So, good cast, fun plot twist, and decent comedy. Studio Mother's behind this one, the same studio that did As a Reincarnated Aristocrat. I'll use my appraisal skill to rise in the world. This is certainly about as polished as that. The art and animation look nice, the colors are vibrant, and overall, it's just a much better production than most Yuri anime get. At least lately. We've never recovered after Bloomin' to You and Adachi and Shimamura, but this looks nice, and has some creativity in how the series is presented. Between the long first-person shot, and transitions between flashbacks and current events, it flows well and keeps me engaged. I've got no complaints. Solid first episode, so go check it out if you're looking for a less creepy and more overt Yuri than Bad Girl. Saying I had mixed feelings on Reincarnated as the 7th Prince's first season is a bit of an understatement, as while I acknowledge the hype-inducing moments, decent attempts at comedy, and mostly good animation, there was still a lot that turned me off. And let's face it, it was mostly the extremely uncomfortable amount of fan service. So will this season win me over? I doubt it, but I might as well keep going anyway. This picks up with the aftermath from last season, namely what's happening with the Assassin Guild members, while exploring the next type of magic Lloyd is going to exploit for his research fetish. I don't really know what else to say. Plot for this does exist, but it's no P-Pro tag anime where the character being crazy strong upends whatever story's taking place. Considering how this episode starts, it looks like Heaven's gonna be his next opponent, now that he's faced some strong types of demons. Animation this season does feel like a bit of a downgrade. Maybe it's because the best moments open and close the episode, but overall it did feel lacking. Not that the art has taken a hit, there's just less personality in how things move. It's more the previous season though at its core, and likely won't disappoint fans, so check it out if you liked the first go around. No doubt people lost hope after 15 years, that the to be continued at the end of the first season was just a joke, but the meme finally dies with more panty and stocking. Should I even recap the plot? Probably not, because there's not much plot to begin with. Two slutty, self-centered fallen angels kill ghosts to get back into heaven, and it's basically a very English cartoon take on anime, but replace dumb jokes with sex, drugs, and vulgarity? Probably not that different, I guess. So how does this pick up after a decade and a half hiatus? Funnily enough, after a short recap, right where the last left off, on that major plot twist after the goddamn credits. Even joking about the 15-year gap in the usual fourth wall breaking way this series does. What follows is essentially the climax to that cliffhanger, bringing back the show in a big way that reminds audiences exactly what it's about. Not that it'll likely matter after this, considering how episodic the first season was. Look, I don't watch this for the plot, I watch it because it's absurdist, raunchy, dark, and mean-spirited fun. That's not gonna change. Animation? It's fucking Trigger. It's experimental and amazing. Parodying Western cartoons interspersed with more traditional anime art, and even live action stuff to punctuate the humor. This studio has certainly grown a lot since the first season came out. 15 years will do that. So there's been a pretty big bump in terms of quality. Noticeably with the art. It looks cleaner than ever, and I'm a fan of it. This has been a long time coming, but I'm glad to see a classic Trigger property get a follow-up. Are we gonna pitch a tent, or be left out in the elements with solo camping for 2? Let's find out. A loner guy who's an avid solo camper bumps into a novice girl struggling with his favorite activity, so he reluctantly extends a helping hand in what's best described as a title drop. This is another scenery porn sort of show that's meant to show off the natural beauty of a given area. The two spending time together while camping is more just a vehicle for exposition about camping and the sights around them. Throw in some banter for attempts at comedy for good measure. It's part informational, part peaceful, but it does have some issues. I joked about this lacking a romance tag in the lineup, but after seeing it firsthand, I'm wondering if a toxic relationship tag wouldn't be more apt. Animation here is on the worst end of average. There's not any egregious issues with how it looks or moves, but there's certainly a stiffness in how it's presented. The characters hold awkward poses with dead-eyed stares while only their mouths flap, telling me this is certainly a lower budget anime. Now that's not a death sentence, but for a show like this, that typically means the scenery art or character interactions are gonna have to do some heavy lifting, and I'm not seeing that here. Our main dude's an unsociable jackass, and our girl's an emotionally manipulative ditz who feels more pushed together by the plot than the plot unfolding due to their closeness. In essence, the writing's not great, and the production's not salvaging this, so I'm left with a pretty lukewarm impression after this first episode. Sakamoto Day's first cour left a pretty good impression on me, despite the animation controversy, so of course I'll be checking out the second now that it's here, and lucky us, this kicks off with the 2-episode premiere. We're picking up where the last cour left off with that whole escape murderers arc, and things are definitely heating up at this point in the story, as the mystery about Slur, the murderers, and the Order duking it out, with Sakamoto and his crew in the crosshairs. The hour premiere definitely helped this one out, by giving us some action and raising the stakes for its return. I won't say the animation is better this go around, but while it's not always pretty, there were moments it was impressive last season, and this one keeps the same vibe, so I essentially expect it to be the same overall. Hell, both cours were probably produced at the same time back to back, so there's really no doubt it's going to be the same. Sakamoto Days is a series that started off pretty bland and has only gotten better as it's gone on, but also crazier, and I'm liking the wacky brutality this anime embodies, so this season has me hooked. And lastly, we're getting a look at the next season of Kaiju number 8. I was probably pretty harsh on the first season, but I just couldn't find my groove with it. Every time I started to enjoy the series, I felt like whatever arc was wrapping up while just adding more questions to the overarching story and barely building it until the final few episodes. I'm really hoping that changes this time around, now that the anime has thoroughly set the tension and stakes with the main dude's identity as a kaiju being discovered, while also incorporating him into the defense force. So how does this episode stack up? Honestly, pretty nicely. It capitalizes on his fears from last season, brought to the forefront for some nice character development, and continues to explore the setting and world. I'm hoping this shift in the dynamic can really salvage this series for me, because the gags and secret keeping aspect was probably what killed my interest in the main dude and his story in the first season. But now that it's all out in the open, I feel like the series has reached a new stage. Now it's kind of about fighting the kaiju inside him, while redeeming himself in the eyes of the public, which, let's face it, just makes for a more compelling story. As for the animation, Production IG is still pulling out all the stops on this one, making a visually interesting and action-packed anime that's just pretty to look at, full of hype moments too. I can tell they're putting their weight behind this series, because it's excelling on every level pretty much every episode thus far. I've gotten a better impression from this comeback than I was expecting, so I'm actually looking forward to where this season's going. So that's it. Summer's really packing some heat, with a stacked lineup of great anime that I have high hopes for. Yeah, almost everything I checked out in this video has promise. Between action, comedy, horror, rom-com, rom-drama, there's a little something for everybody to check out. But surely there's some I didn't cover that you're looking forward to, so why not leave a comment below telling me what's got you excited? I'd love to hear it. For now though, hey, you've made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and do all the other YouTube stuff to help the channel grow. You can also check out my Discord with a link down in the description, and if you really want to support my channel, you can hit up my Patreon or join my channel memberships. And speaking of, I'd like to give a special thanks to JMonth33A, Pokeflute, Robin DBL, Tristan, and Vonstrom for their continued support. Thanks for watching.